So a surprising thing I can take away from Searching, a movie that takes place entirely on computer screens, is that I learned some things I didn't know about computers. This was kind of an educational experience as well, and I didn't see that coming.
Put the bunny back in the box.
Starring, amongst others, John Cho, Deborah Messing, Michelle La, Sarah Son and Joseph Lee. Directed by Anish Chaganty off of a screenplay he wrote alongside Sev Ahanian. This is my review for Searching. Searching is the story of John Cho's David Kim, and his daughter disappears, mysteriously vanishes 2 years after their mother's death. He then has to rely on technology on his computer to be able to track her down and try and find out what's happened to her. I was a little bit concerned about Searching going into it because the premise for me seemed like a gimmick. Well, not necessarily the premise, just more how they were using it. Because everything here is on a lap, on a Mac, on an iPhone, everything's FaceTime. Everything relies on technology. We don't get any shots that aren't already on a screen, so news reports and things like that. Nothing is seen by us, the audience, that isn't on a screen of some sort. And yeah, I thought that was going to be a little bit of a gimmick. I mean, this isn't the first movie to do something like this. Unfriended has done a whole movie on Skype, and the sequel for that's just about to come out. I don't think it is out. I think it's coming out. So it's not the first one to do it, but it just already started to seem like this was becoming a format that could grow tiresome pretty quickly. But to this movie's credit, it executes it almost perfectly. And I want to get into the negatives I have about this first, and they are just kind of nitpicky negatives, really. There's nothing really that detracted from my experience in this film because I absolutely loved it. So let's just get those couple of little things out of the way first. The first one is the over-reliance of FaceTime. Everybody here communicates with FaceTime. They don't just do a normal phone call, whether it's to a police officer, whether it's in the middle of the night. They'll always use FaceTime, which maybe this is just me and the people that I kind of circulate with or speak to on the phone, but we never do that. Very rarely do we do FaceTime, but they do it all the time here. But it's forgivable because the film needed it. Like, I understand the choice to do it because you needed to have these people's faces on the screen. You need to be able to see the looks and the reactions of both sides of the conversations. So, yeah, there were moments where I was like, are they using FaceTime now? It's like 3 a.m. What's wrong with them? But yeah, I get it. I understand why they are. And there were 1 or 2 moments for me where the pace slowed down. And I've been really careful here not to talk about spoilers because this is a film that I want to talk about spoilers about. And normally I would do a spoiler section after I've given the rating at the end. But because this movie is not out for about another 5 weeks, I don't think it's out until the end of August. It feels a bit soon. So I may come back and do another spoiler video at some point. But yeah, there are parts where it does feel like it slows down. But, and I won't name the specific part because I don't want to draw attention to it. But it, again, when everything wraps up, when you get to the end of this movie, you realise how important every single detail is. And that's it for my negatives. I don't have anything else I can say. There was one point where I thought the movie was going to go in a certain way, where I thought it was going to be predictable, but it wasn't. It didn't go anywhere near how I thought this was going to wrap up. So yeah, I don't have anything else negative to say about this at all. I do have a ton of positive though. Let's just backtrack to what I said about all the little details mattering. This is a really tight script. This script is full of so many little things, so many tiny little moments, tiny little lines of dialogue, tiny little messages typed that really mean something. There's hardly anything in this is just throwaway. When this all wraps up, when everything kind of connects together, I want to see this again just so I can... There's bits I've missed, there's bits I would have forgotten about that just played such an important part in how everything ties in together. And when I say tiny little details, I mean the thought that goes into it as well. When John Cho's character, David Kim, when he's sending a message to his daughter, this is early on in the film, when he's writing a message, we get to understand what's going on in his head just by what he's typing and what he's deleting. So, for example, he won't say that your mother would be proud because he doesn't want to think about her. So we see him type the message and then delete it. Whether he puts an exclamation mark at the end of a sentence or whether he removes it. Little things like this give us such an insight into what he's thinking, into what he's going through, into what kind of man he's become since he lost his wife. And it shows that this was a movie that was written with care. It was written with passion. The writer here, Sev Ahanian, just knew exactly what he wanted, and he wanted to make sure every single little thing resonated. And absolutely it does. And let's talk about the performances. John Cho is incredible in this. He gives the best performance I have ever seen from him, and I've always liked John Cho. I always think he's a very good actor. He's solid, he's dependable, but I've never looked at him and thought, this guy is amazing. I did in Searching. There's a certain scene, and again, spoilers, I can't really get into them, but there are certain moments where he just delivers just an incredible performance. The heart and the emotion is completely on the line with the character of David Kim, and yeah, John Cho's never been better for me. I hope he gets some recognition for this because it's fully deserved. And the same with Deborah Messing as well. She's a complicated character, she's complex, but again, you get to know what's going on in her mind as well, just by certain looks that she gives. Just, you know that there's something upsetting in her own life, and she's the detective, by the way, working on the case. And you can see that there's real upset for her as she's working and she's trying to help him. And just, yeah, amazing performances. And they're the main two. There are other actors that sort of pop in and out. I mean, even the daughter, Margot, Michelle Lar, doesn't appear that frequently. But through the technology, we get to understand the relationship she has with her dad. And that's the thing I want to talk about next, is how they use this technology. Because I saw a couple of comments on Twitter where people were saying, oh, it's basically just an advert for Apple and them using that as a negative. Well, they're not going to make their own computing system for this. They're going to use a pre-existing one because we, the audience, need to relate to it. We need to know what we're seeing. We need to know what he's doing and what he's clicking on to be able to feel like we're part of the story, to be able to feel like it's our world. So, of course, they're going to use something like Apple, one of the biggest ones around. Why wouldn't they? And it's not just Apple. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of these sort of different apps and things, Gmail, all used in there to make this seem relatable to us, to make it seem like we know what he's doing, we know what he's searching, and little tricks to access accounts as well. Like, it's the sort of thing that if the same thing happened to us, we'd have to do ourselves. So yeah, that wasn't a problem for me. The only thing really is it becomes a little bit difficult at times to know whose computer screen we're looking at. When we get to sort of news reports and things like that, it's still sticking to technology, so I don't want to say it's betraying the premise at all. And again, I get why they had to do it, particularly with sort of news reports. I understand why we had to do that a little differently to what come before. But that and the FaceTime bit are the only sort of parts of the actual gimmick, as it were, the actual way they're telling this story, that at times were a little bit confusing or a little bit forced. But 100% I think it was the right choice to do it exactly the way that they did. But by far the best use of this, though, is the opening 5 minutes of this movie, which resembles Up in the heartbreak stakes. It's not a spoiler to say that Margot's mother has died. She battled an illness and didn't pull through. And we see this play out in the opening of the movie, much like Up, just a much shorter version of it. But yeah, we see it play out. We see Margot from a young age. We see the three of them, the family bonding and sort of little files that they've made for her first day at school. And we see her illness deteriorate, and it's just done perfectly. I wasn't expecting this to be an emotional movie, but it really was. Like the opening 5 minutes of this are, well, they got me. They definitely got me. And I admire what Searching did as well for the story it was telling, because it seems like it's going in one direction, not the boy band, and then it changes about halfway through and becomes not necessarily a different movie, but the tone of it changes. It becomes a lot more intense, and that switch is almost kind of a little bit jarring, but we're seeing this play out through David's head, sort of not his head, but his perspective. Like, he's the guy that we're following, and it must have been incredibly jarring for him. So it 100% worked, and as I hinted at earlier, when it gets to the end, when this all wraps up and all of the pieces start falling into place and everything, you have so many oh shit moments in this movie. Every one of those works, because I was so worried that when this wrapped up it was going to be a letdown, something was going to feel forced, something was going to feel out of place. But to me and to the people around me as well, there was an audible gasp at one point. Like, you could hear the audience kind of going, oh my god, that means that. Like, I've not heard that for a while in a screening. I've not heard sort of the audience audibly react to something, but they did hear. And you think there's one big reveal, then there's another, and it's just all executed, I personally think, absolutely perfectly. I saw Searching last night, and I wanted to come home and just do the review straight away, but I was a little bit apprehensive too, because I had 10 out of 10 in my mind for this, and I haven't given it 10 yet. I really haven't, and I wanted to sleep on it. I wanted to see if I woke up in the morning and more problems with the film started to emerge, but they haven't. They haven't at all. This is a film that connected with me more than any other film has this year. I was fully invested in what was going on. I wanted David to find his daughter. Through his performance, through the way this was directed, and Anish Chaganty, this is his first feature film, and hopefully big things for him, because he knew exactly what to do this and how to execute this perfectly, but 100% he nailed this. Yeah, I was so caught up in what was going on, and by the time we got to the end, it was like an emotional roller coaster. It really was. Like, I, at one point, just kind of had to catch my breath a little bit. I kind of had to compose myself after how we got to the end here. And I feel this may not be a movie that everybody loves to the degree that I do. I mean, as I say, certainly myself, my fiance, and many people around us shared the same sentiment. We all came out of this absolutely loving it. And again, people walking out of the screening as well were talking about how much they loved it. And again, I don't hear that very often either. Normally, kind of people walk out and you just hear it was all right, or they start talking about something completely different. But the surrounding people that were walking out with us were all talking about this film, and everything I was hearing was positive. I didn't hear one negative, not one. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna give my first 10 out of 10 since I've started this channel. I'm gonna give Searching a 10 out of 10. Hallelujah! 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 That felt good. That felt good to give a 10 out of 10. I really want to see Searching again. I really want to watch it through one more time, just so I can spot all the little bits that I kind of just thought were filler before, because now I know they're not. Now I know that there's not a lot in the way of filler in this. Everything's important. Yeah, I can't wait to see this again. I'm actually annoyed that it's not out for another month and a bit, because I just kind of want to go right now, see this again and watch it all the way through. If you get a chance to see Searching, I think it's out towards the end of August. If you get a chance, please go and watch it, because this is a smaller movie. It's a movie that didn't have a huge budget behind it. It couldn't have done. So not a massive budget at all. It's not a huge name cast. It's, yeah, more smaller in scope and in plot. This is the kind of film that I really want to do well. We're so swept up in the superhero movies and the huge budget movies these days. And that's not to say I don't enjoy them, but the smaller movies, I think, tends to get lost in the shuffle a little bit. It's quite rare for something to come out and do extremely well without huge star power behind it. That's why I want Searching to succeed, to show that movies can exist on a smaller budget. They don't have to be absolutely massive. They don't have to cost through the roof. Because I feel a lot of movies aren't getting sequels because of how much they cost to make in the first place, that then it's not making enough back. So yeah, please go support this film. Go check it out. And when you do see it, if you may have seen it already, let me know what you think of it in the comments below. You can follow me on Twitter at JoeJulians, and if you like this video, hit like and hit subscribe. I should have my Mission Impossible 6, Mission Impossible Fallout review up tomorrow. I've reviewed all 5 of the other movies over the last few days, and they're all up on the channel now, so check them out, see what you think of them. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.